Hello, welcome to the program. Well, school's back tomorrow and the state government is vowing to wage war against truants with police squads. We'll talk to two problem kids the authorities said were just too hard to handle. But first, Sandy Jackson wanted one child, but she ended up having triplets. It shouldn't have been such a surprise. She was on a fertility program. For many childless couples, it's their last chance and they're overjoyed at finally having a family. Not Sandy. 6 years ago, she had her kids. Now she blames the IVF program for making her life hell. As Tracy Pollock reports, for Sandy, the miracle of birth has brought her constant heartbreak.
They're not quite four little angels. 3 came courtesy of in vitro fertilization. Triplets, gifts of life, medical miracles. Not so, says mum Sandy Jackson. The day she was told she was having triplets was the day her life turned completely upside down.
I was very, very ill. And the moment I got over that, I then went on to 24-hour morning sickness, where I vomited morning, noon and night. And the moment I got over that, my pelvis separated and I couldn't walk properly anymore. And so 6 weeks before they were born, I was hospitalised. Most pregnancies aren't meant to be like that.
1 in 8 Australian couples has infertility problems. Every year, around 10,000 couples seek treatment through IVF clinics across the country. And it was IVF Sandy Jackson turned to 6 years ago as the only safe way she could start a family. Sandy indeed fell pregnant, but unlike the tens of thousands of IVF success stories, this mum is now slamming the program that gave her Molly, Maverick and Jordan.
I would never go through that again. I would never ever suggest anybody go through it. There's so much medical procedure, having injections, taking tablets, going through minor operations, that the focus is on the procedural side of the IVF rather than looking in the long-term outcomes of any of IVF procedures.
Now, there'd be some people out there who would say that you're ungrateful, that the system gave you a child that you were unable to have. What do you say to those people?
I would ask them to walk in my shoes for a week. I'm not ungrateful for IVF. IVF has been a medical miracle because there are a lot of women who would never have conceived without it. But we have to be realists and say, okay, what is the best outcome? Is it multiple births, higher multiples, or is it decreasing the number of eggs that are implanted and giving people as close as possible a normal lifestyle?
Do you love your children? You love them? But there just should be more help?
As a registered nurse, you'd think that Sandy would have known what to expect. But she says, like hundreds of other mums, she was blinkered by the desperation to have a baby.
I suppose in hindsight, looking back, I personally thought, well, I don't want to be coming back for this time and time again. I would like to go with what is going to be the greatest chance of a pregnancy.
At that time, medical research dictated 3 embryos be implanted. And Sandy is critical she never had an option of simply trying with 2. She says in the first 2 years she was suicidal, the stress of feeding and caring for 3 babies taking a daily toll.
If somebody said to me, if we put these 3 in and they will positively take, I then would have said no. When they're born, they all want to be fed at the same time. They try and sleep, but often one won't sleep, so one will wake up the other 2. For the first 2.5 years, I did not sleep one full night's sleep.
Sandy went from being childless to caring for 4 children in under 2 years, with the surprise natural birth of Curtis adding to the IVF triplets. And as any parent would know, that dramatic change in home life comes at a cost.
Maverick and Curtis, stop that noise!
When you have a baby, your life changes. But when you have multiple births, your life changes dramatically. And I don't think there is anything that would prepare you for that.
It's a very tough call. It's I have twins, not triplets, but it's not something I would really wish on anyone. It's very, very hard work. As I get older, it gets easier, but then further on down the road with school, you have more issues coming up that are attributable just to multiple births.
Elaine Heiner is with the Multiple Birth Association. She sympathises with Sandy and agrees only 2 embryos should be implanted. But she says many responsible clinics have already adopted this as code.
I feel sad and concerned for her that after 6 years she still hasn't possibly come to terms with the fact that she does have triplets. The triplet mothers that I know, while never saying that it's all smiles and happiness, they feel very blessed to have had their 3 children in one go.
Monash IVF Director Dr Kevin Forbes says triplets is not considered a success.
I've certainly used the statement that triplets is, in a sense, a treatment failure, in a sense, our treatment failure, because we didn't really think that that was the likely outcome.
Has Sandy Jackson got a right to complain?
The code has been in place for several years as self-regulation. Many years ago, it was very common to put 4 embryos back per treatment episode. Then it became 3 embryos that was a recommendation, and now the 2 embryo transfers is the preferred option.
Dr Forbes says, sadly in Sandy's case, 3 was considered standard practice 6 years ago, and IVF has made great leaps since then.
These days we understand a lot more about the outcomes of transferring to 3 embryos.
You wouldn't be without them for a minute but life is hard. But if I had my time over again, I would never have had more than 2 implanted.
Tracy Pollock reporting there. Next, making sure your child is at school. We meet the kids who constantly wag.
How many times were you suspended?
About 4 times. These are the kids who've slipped through the system and this is their last chance.